Hello, I'm Faith, and welcome to Faith's Take, where I talk about anything and everything that I find interesting. And welcome, finally, to my Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review. I apologize that it took a while to get this out. I actually saw it almost a week ago with my family, but I couldn't record that night, and then the next day I planned to go see it with my cousins, so I was like, you know what, I'll wait until after I see it then, and we just saw it yesterday night, Sunday, and I'm finally getting to recording tonight. And the way this review is going to work is the first few minutes I'll be giving just general thoughts, a non-spoilery review, and then the second part, though, I'll give a warning, and then I want to go into spoilers. But general thoughts on the movie, it was great, just like the first one. It's very good, but what I like that it does, it's the same thing that The Winter Soldier did very well. Also, is you have a first movie where I like the first Guardians better than the first Captain America, but I like both movies. But the second one takes the concepts, characters, and emotions of the first one and just cranks that notch up 100%. Like, because first you have Captain America, which overall is like it's a good movie, but it's like a war film and all that. And then all of a sudden you crank it up and you're like, oh well, now there's this whole brainwashing scheme and all this terrible stuff. And in this, it's hey, the first one is like at least Captain America's a war movie, so there's like at least that emotion to it. Guardians, for the most part, is just like super fun and wacky happy times with everyone having kind of a dark backstory that we get, but overall it's a fun movie with a lot of pop music and stuff. And then in this one there's a lot more deepness to it. Like if you're like me and you love character development, you'll probably love this movie because it's so good. It's so deep at some points, guys. It hurts. Like Chronos 222 had commented about, I don't know, a week and a half ago after they saw it and said how it's really good and really funny, but the feels, and I was just like, I mean, we just had Civil War a year ago. How many feels is a Guardians movie gonna have? I don't know. I mean, I knew there'd be some because it's one of my absolute favorites of all the Marvel movies, but I was like, I don't know, man, but it is feels heavy, guys. Like, there are some parts where it's just like, oh, this hurts. But if you're like me and you actually like characters with a lot of emotion and development, you'll probably like that a lot. When it comes to which is better, the first or the second, it really depends on what you're looking for. Like I said, the first one is great if you're going for pure fun. Just put it on any time of day. Like, it's on TV a lot at our house. It's on all the time. There was one night where they played it twice in a row, and we just left it both times on in the background. So, like, we could watch that any time. And the second one, you do have to be slightly more, like, emotionally prepared for it, but it's so good. The action and the visuals, let's get to that real quick. Gorgeous. Like the oh man, I think it some of it harkened back to Doctor Strange a little bit. There were a few moments where it was like that. It just the first one was also visually stunning. Getting to see a sci-fi-ish movie come out of Marvel is really fun. Rocket and Groot look as good as ever, probably better than the first one if you actually compared them. So it's just the fact that we can have a movie, it's like that we're so far in the modern day that we can have a movie where two of the leads are completely animated, and that's cool. It doesn't ever feel like it. It doesn't ever feel like, oh, they're not there. You believe that they're there. You will believe that a talking raccoon and tree are just walking around. Makeup also, I know that's kind of weird, but it's like, I mean, more than half these characters have to have color on their faces and stuff. Like, they gotta be blue and green and everything, and so that's always like, that's fun. It's like, do you know how much time they spend in those makeup chairs, man? But it all comes out really well. The effects, awesome. Space always looks great in these movies. It's just good. If it looked good in the trailers, it looks even better on the big screen here. And when it comes to story, I think that some people said one of the only complaints I've really heard at all, which I'll give is a somewhat valid complaint, especially for a Marvel movie, is that the third act is very, huge threat that's gonna hurt a lot of things or people if we don't stop it, which is the end of every Avengers movie. It's the end of most of these movies. Doctor Strange, a lot of them do that type of stuff. The only ones that didn't off the top of my head that were recent were Ant-Man and Civil War, where the world itself was not at stake at the time. It'd be like maybe years down the line that'll happen, but not currently. And I think that works for those movies, but I think that the big ending worked here. First of all, again, it's sci-fi action adventure, so you gotta have kind of a big ending, but it was intertwined extremely well with the stories, with like the character arcs stories, so it made sense that it was kind of a big, huge deal, at least in this case. When it comes to, now let's get to the most important part, as non spoiler before we go into the movie. This is the most important part for me, so this is mostly what I'm gonna be talking about. It's the characters, guys. The characters make this movie so good, just like the first one. I was the only, let me give you a quick little story about the first one here. I was the only person I know who, before the trailers were even out for the first one, was excited for the first one. Because I had faith in Marvel ever since the Avengers. I was like, just the fact that that movie, you could watch it on its own and still understand what most of the characters want, need, and are going through, or you could watch all the ones leading up to it and it would work. And the fact that they just kept getting better, especially after Winter Soldier, man, like that, like raised the stakes a lot and really kind of upped the game for everything, and showed how dark and somewhat twisted these stories can even get a little bit. And you know, before the trailers, everyone's like, "Oh, Guardians, a talking tree and raccoon, all that," and I was just thinking, like, if they can make Thor and Captain America and Hawkeye work in the same movie, like, I'm pretty dang sure they could figure this out. I don't think they'd take such a gamble if they didn't have faith in themselves and what they're capable of doing, is what I was thinking. And what I was, like, so vindicated, because that first trailer dropped, and you heard that pop music in the back, and then everyone was like, "Oh, it looks great now." I was like, "I told you, I knew it before the trailer even came out." So, you know, same thing happened with Ant-Man. Even after Guardians, people were like, "Ant-Man looks like it's gonna suck." You don't know, and then I was right. So, I have a feeling for these things. But, you know, maybe it's only with Marvel movies, but, so I thought the first one was gonna be good. It was so fun. It was different for Marvel. What's so amazing to me about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that the movies can all have different writers, directors, and tones, and yet still all kind of be cohesive. So the first one, saw it, loved it immediately. What I love about it is the characters, and what I love so much about the characters, they kind of pull a bait and switch. There's one thing about those trailers, though, that I didn't like, because it has nothing to do with the film itself. If you watch that first trailer, or it's either the first one or the first, like, full-length trailer, you have John C. Reilly, Wreck-It Ralph, working at the place, looking at them all when they have them captured in those screens, like, describing them all, and they imply that, like, the government of Xandar, I think it is, they put the five of them together on purpose, like, kind of like Suicide Squad, basically. They're like, "Hey, we made our own Suicide Squad with these 5 characters." But in the movie, it's not that at all. They choose to be good people and to make these decisions in the end. And I think that works so well. Even some of the Avengers were forced into it. Bruce Banner didn't want to be there in the first Avengers. They held him to it. They were just like, "Well, you need to come." Could he have said no? Yes, but he would have had to probably Hulk out in the process, didn't want to do that. So it's, you know, they don't necessarily want to be there. Thor only came because it was Loki that was causing the problems in that first one. You know, so it's, you know, they're like, even the Avengers might not necessarily want to do what they do, but the Guardians were just like, you know, we started out as terrible people, but maybe we should do this. So I really had an affinity for that film and for the characters, and I just enjoy it so much. It's fun, it's overall cheerful, but there are some hard moments, and I think this movie does a very good job taking that and expanding upon it. And there's still fun, and there's still pop music, and there's still good jokes, and there's still just all this, a lot of the great tone that was in the first one, but it is heavier. And I personally appreciate that, because I think the balance is still good. I don't want you to take this super fun, happy-go-lucky, for the most part, movie and then make this just super dark and gritty, realistic type movie. It's like, they don't. It has a much more balance in between the films. So I think that worked really well. If you loved the first one and loved the characters, you're gonna adore this one, especially if you like depth, and especially if you don't mind a little bit less humor to get the story out. And again, visuals are gorgeous. Please see it on the big screen if you haven't. If you've seen it, go see it again. It's just so good. It's so well made. James Gunn just knows what he's doing with these characters, guys. Another one quick last thing on the characters before I go into spoilers. Even the characters that were more to the side in the first one, and the new characters, get stories or get really good moments. As you've probably seen in the trailers, Yondu and Nebula both come back, and they have stories, and they have important stuff to do as well. And then Mantis, the new character, also has some really great stuff. Very sweet, innocent character as well, which is always nice. Please stop this now if you haven't seen it and go see it. Please, please, please. Now, it's been a week and a half, so hopefully you've already seen it. If not, I would highly recommend doing it before seeing anything with spoilers, because this is important. Okay, we're gonna get into spoilers now if everybody's gone. Alright, start with the opening real quick, though. Star-Lord is from Missouri. Heck yes, I thought that was hilarious. And it's only because James Gunn, the director, is from Missouri. I think he's from St. Louis or around there, so I thought that was hilarious, because who wouldn't do that? If I was writing a superhero movie and I could put them wherever I wanted on Earth, I'd be like, Missouri. So it's totally hilarious to me. One quick interesting thing, again, about the opening that I noticed is the opening says 1980, and then when it cuts to the Guardians, it says 34 years later. Well, that would put it 2014. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is our current timeline. If you watch Doctor Strange, he has a plaque that says 2016, which is the year the movie came out, so it's in real time. So the first Guardians also had timestamps that made it 2014. So I'm thinking, if you got 2014 and it still is, that means these two adventures they've been on happened in the same year, which I think is pretty fun. And then so they're gonna fast forward like 4 years when we get to Infinity War. So I think, if you've seen it, you know who the villain is. And I'm sure that a lot of people have probably even had it spoiled for them who the real villain is, which we all suspected from the trailer anyway. It is Star-Lord's dad. He's the bad guy, and I'm like, I think that was pretty obvious just from the trailers. But if not, if you pay attention to the movie, by the 30-ish minute mark, there hadn't been a real villain. Yes, we'd had the Sovereign, but the only reason they even wanted them dead was because Rocket stole from them. I was like, there's no way the Sovereign are the main villains, and it's been like 30 minutes, and a main villain hasn't been established yet. It has to be the guy that we're all wondering, is he the villain? And it was. I don't know if any of you watched Steven Universe, but I immediately got Steven Universe vibes from this guy, even before it was revealed he was the villain, when he's taking them on that tour, and they're seeing all the different weird egg-shaped things with the story inside. And he was like, oh, I had to make sure I had the perfect child to help me in my plans. I was like, this is some Steven Universe stuff. Because while his mom might not be around, you know that she only had him, created him to get out of her own problems, and for whatever destiny, she's shady, just saying. So it was the same thing here. I'm like, you're shady, Star-Lord's dad. So I kind of figured something was up. Everybody did. Turns out something was up. Star-Lord's story is very good in this movie. I think it really helped to deepen the character. And Star-Lord, let's talk about Star-Lord first, because I was like, let's spoil the villain. Now it's Star-Lord first, and then we'll get to everybody's little story arcs. We get Star-Lord's story Star-Lord's story is the most prevalent, but not by much. Because I think a lot of the characters got a lot of good story/screen time. So, I think Star-Lord's is the lead, basically because the villain is most connected to him. The one thing I do have to address, though, before getting into Star-Lord's, the serious part of Star-Lord's story, when his dad, when he's teaching him how to make, the light into things, and he made a ball, and they start playing catch, even I was like, dude, that is too much. That was too sappy and too cheesy for me. I'm like, I'm totally good with these guys, getting some serious and some sweet moments, having sweet moments. I mean, we have Baby Groot in this movie. You can't get much cuter and sweeter than Baby Groot, so that's fine. But playing catch, dude, that was too much. That was too much, in my opinion. That was too much stuff. But later on, it gets so good. Later on, the big twist where I was just like, where I kind of suspected it, and then I was like, I knew it, you son of a gun, was that he intentionally killed Peter's mother and gave her the brain cancer. My heart dropped, because I did suspect that as soon as he was like, oh, I had to make sure my genes worked, and then I knew I didn't want to leave her, but I had to come and do my eternity thing, and I was like, you killed her, didn't you? But I was hoping that wasn't the case. I was hoping it was a coincidence. But as soon as he said, I hated to put that tumor in her head, my heart sunk to my stomach. I was like, poor Peter, that's the worst possible thing. But it came with one of I think the best character moments they could have given Peter at all, and I'll explain why. His dad says that, and as soon as Peter realizes what it is, he shoots to kill and does not stop shooting for a good several seconds. I loved that. I'm gonna explain why. Even after his dad literally showed him somehow all of eternity and the amazing expansion and basically kingdom they would have, and infinite power they would have, as soon as he heard, by the way, I killed your mom, it's like all out the window. He's like, I'm gonna kill you. And I thought that was great. And here's, again, I have a reason. It's the same reason I love in Big Hero 6, how in that movie, when Hero finds out who killed his brother, he wants to kill that guy. He wants to kill the villain when he hears how he purposefully, like, set the building on fire and ended up killing his brother. He sets Baymax to kill mode and is like, kill this guy because he killed my brother, and no mercy, nothing. But what I love about that is so much more realistic than having every single hero and protagonist be like, well, I hate you, but I'll just put you in jail. Well, I hate you and you deserve to die, but I won't do that to you. I'm like, no. If they took your brother or your mother, who in both cases were one of the only family members they had left, it's like, yes, you're going to want to kill them. I was actually really happy that Peter, no questions, nothing, is like, I'm going to kill you. I don't care, and shoots his own dad in the face. I thought that was great. I thought that worked really well. But to get to the other characters really quick, Gamora's and Nebula's stories that kind of interwove. I liked seeing Gamora in this movie having grown as a character to kind of accept the fact that she's in this weird family now, and just, this is our group and this is what we do, and I think that really worked. But I think Nebula's story, man, I have a heart, and we'll get to this a little more later, for the characters in the Marvel Universe who have been tortured. Like, legitimately tortured. Because most superheroes, most characters in general have a sad backstory, but a lot of them are like, my parents died, or someone I loved died, or this weird tragic thing that happened in my life. But most of those things are pretty realistic. Most of us have lost someone important to us in our lives. But being tortured is different. It's like, most of us have been blessed to not be tortured in such a way. But we have two characters in this movie, two, that have been just like physically ripped apart and put back together for no reason other than whoever's doing its like own sadistic enjoyment and just questioning of nature, which is just terrible. And another one who we got that with is Bucky, is the Winter Soldier, and the terrible, mind wiping and things that he's had. And I really have a heart for those characters. There's just something about that really bothers me. We'll get more into that later on when we talk about Rocket's story. But hearing how Nebula was just torn apart and put back together by Thanos just because Gamora was a better fighter than her, and the excuse was always, oh, so you'll be better or whatever. It's like, that is pretty crushing, and you definitely see why Nebula turned out the way she did. It wasn't just, oh, she's evil, which is not necessarily what the first movie implies completely, but it's kind of like, oh, she's a daughter of Thanos, so it's Gamora. Gamora just happened to be in the right place at the right time to then turn into a better person with these guys, and Nebula just happened to not be and to not choose them. But it ends up being like, you see why she hates Thanos and even hates Gamora, even though it wasn't Gamora's fault what happened to her. And then to have Nebula be like, I'm gonna go kill Thanos myself. So I really hope that she and Gamora have big parts in Infinity War taking Thanos out, which would be really fun. But I think that story worked really well. I think that it really brought, at least a little humanity to someone who, even from the first one we just saw, is kind of more of a mindless killing machine without much else behind her, to then be like, well, here's this huge tragic backstory that's just as bad as any of the others we've seen, was pretty good. And then Gamora, I really liked how, my sister and I both caught this, how easily she dances with Star-Lord in the middle. He's just like, dance with me, and at first she's like, no, and then she's like, okay, fine, like instantly, so that was fun. Her story in this kind of, being there for Peter, but then at the same time, like, wanting Peter to be happy and have his father, but at the same time being like, something is not right, and like her trying to be the voice of reason, but also feeling bad because Peter can't have his family and all that. Then we have Drax and Mantis. I'll put them together like I did Gamora and Nebula, because they had such a fun intertwining story with each other. Their friendship was one of the best newer elements to this movie, because they're both so innocent and don't know how social stuff works, which was really fun. That was one of the best parts of Drax in both movies, was, people are totally literal, metaphors are going to go over his head, so that was always fun. And then to have Mantis, who also doesn't understand these kind of things, was very interesting. I love Mantis's power also, by the way, the emotion, being able to read emotions and somewhat control them, because I'd actually thought of that myself a year or two ago, and I was like, it'd be cool if we had a character that could do that. Not that it was their only power, but at least something they could do, so actually having one now is pretty sweet. But their just innocent friendship was really, really cute, and I like that we got just enough of reminded of Drax's backstory with his wife and daughter, and I think it was really clever of them to not have Drax be visually very upset, more just visually thoughtful, and then have Mantis, through touching him and feeling his feelings, start crying, and you do realize that deep, sadness and scarring that Drax does still have, despite having defeated Ronan. And I thought that was good, though. So I'm glad that they put that in there to show that, yeah, Drax is still kind of hurting, even though overall he's a pretty happy guy. That there is still pain there, which I thought was actually good and adds layers and depth to the character, and helped him and Mantis connect a lot more, which I liked. Okay, so now we're gonna get to Rocket and Groot and Yondu's story, because they all connect. First of all, Baby Groot is adorable, as everybody's saying. He's so cute. Rocket and Yondu, man. Let's get into this. Rocket is my favorite character in both these movies, in both the first one and this one as well, and he's in my top 3 favorite Marvel heroes, along with Ant-Man and Falcon, all 3 of which I think are highly underrated in these movies. But in the first one, it's like both of these movies, actually, they do the same thing, which is you're at a part where either everything's quiet or something's been built up to, and then it's like all of a sudden you get gut punched with some Rocket emotion or backstory. And in this case, it ties into Yondu's story as well. Who would have thought we would get this emotional about Yondu in this movie after the first one? And it's so funny how after the first movie and after Star-Lord being like, these guys are threatening to eat me and these guys are treated me terrible my whole life, but then you realize that in the end it was to protect him. It is kind of like, why'd you never say anything? And my thought is, they probably didn't know when they wrote that script that was the direction this was heading, is my guess. Maybe not. Maybe they just wanted to be completely, like, out of left field. Like, oh, you didn't know that Yondu, like, while being a terrible person, was also a somewhat decent enough person to be willing to not get paid again by this guy just to save Peter's life and to keep any more kids from being delivered there. I don't know. I have a feeling that just wasn't written. They just didn't know. Having Yondu's story coincide or relate to Rockets was very interesting, because who would have thought with those two, first of all. But it's like, Rocket, man, these Rocket's story in the first one already broke my heart. It's after Peter and Gamora's romantic scene. All of a sudden it's like they're fighting in the bar and Rocket just spills this backstory of, I was this hideous experiment that they just ripped apart 1,001 times, and as far as we know, for no reason other than just to, like, see what we can do with this weird creature. And then in this one, it's right before the third act. They're like, hey, we gotta go defeat this bad guy on planet. And then all of a sudden, he's, like, trying to be all just like, oh, I don't care about their lives. I just want to be able to make it sound like I saved them so I can just lord this over them. And for Rocket, who obviously does care about these people, like, after even just the first one he cares about these people, but for him to be like, oh, I don't care about saving them, and then for Yondu to start laughing and be just like, you idiot, I know for a fact that's not why you're doing this. I'm like, no duh, Yondu, like, everyone knows that's not why he'd be doing this. But to then just get into this whole, like, really dark backstory and inner sadness for the both of them is heartbreaking. And I was like, that was the moment where I was like the most just crushed inside, because I love Rocket so much. Like I said, that first one, like, that scene really did get to me in the first one, where I was just like, whoa, like, when you got that backstory, it was harsh. And this one's harsh for both of them. Yondu's like, first of all, my parents sold me into slavery, which is just, like, what? Just crazily terrible. And then with Rocket, you push anyone away, because as soon as you start to feel something, you realize how empty you are, because those scientists that built you didn't care about you. And so you're worried to get close to people. And I was just like, geez, do we have to get into this? Because it's like, it's brilliant, and I do love it, and I love this character development. And of my top 3 Marvel characters, like I said, Ant-Man and Falcon are the other 2. Rocket has the most complex and sad story out of any of them. You know, I mean, Ant-Man's kind of a Robin Hood and then has to kind of pay. I mean, he did still steal, even if it was for a good reason, and so then he doesn't get to see his daughter. And then Falcon did lose his best friend while they were, you know, flying for the military. But Rocket is, like, literally just physically and mentally tortured by these scientists, and then it's like has never felt love, never had a family his whole life, and now that he does, he's kind of breaking down, not knowing what to do with himself. And I'm just like, that is like a super deep, and it's a talking raccoon, guys. It's like, what? It's not a human character. It's not even an alien character, technically. It is an Earth raccoon that they did experiments on, and it's just like, how did we get to this point as a society, as creatures ourselves, where we can make a movie, or a movie can exist where a talking raccoon can be one of the most emotionally and deep and complex characters of this entire franchise full of deep and complex characters. It just is, and it's weird. It's weird, but in a good way. But it is. Man, when you hear the two of their backstories, especially together, you're just like, why is this happening? It hurts so much. Dang it, man. And I think Bradley Cooper does not get nearly enough credit as you know, Rocket's performer, because I think a lot of the other actors, it's easier to, I guess, you know, say, oh, they're so good at it because you see their faces and you can tell exactly what you can see them. Like, you see Steve Rogers, but you can also be like, oh, but it's also Chris Evans, and give him compliments for that performance. But with Bradley Cooper, it's harder, I guess, because you're not seeing his face, and you just totally believe that this you know, that Rocket is real, and that he is his own person. And it's even easier to think that. You'd think it'd be harder because it's technically an animated character, but it's done so well that you just believe this character exists, and you don't even see it as the actor ever, because you don't see the actor. But Bradley Cooper, he's so good, man. It's like, all of them are, but dude, I mean, because he has to be really funny and at the same time really deep and emotional. I mean, they all do, but I mean, his performance is strictly vocal. Now, obviously, the animation is gorgeous, and the animators do a fantastic job with Rocket and with Groot, but it's like, that voice, man, when it, like, breaks, it's like I break. I'm just like, no, stop this. But at the same time, it's so hard with character development for me, because I love it so much, even when it hurts. So it's kind of like you're punching me in the face, and I'm like, I hate that, but do it again. So it's the same with Rocket both times. I'm like, oh, that breaks my heart, but I want to hear more. Like, keep doing this to me. And it just, that's the one that got me the most, and it was just, there's something about Rocket that I both love and kind of connect to in a weird way. I don't know why, but even in the first one, you know, it just, there's just something about that character. I think one thing that I did come up with actually recently was I seem to like characters. I just realized between this and Mystery Science Season 11, I like characters who are extremely intelligent, but that is not the main facet of their personality. I grew up being called, like, the smart one, okay? And I'm not saying this to, like, you know, oh, I'm humble bragging or anything. No, but I did grow up usually being, you know, one of the smartest kids of my age. But, you know, there was more to me but just, you know, because it's real life. It's not that you're just smart. You have a personality to go with it. And unfortunately, with a lot of fictional characters, being smart is their biggest personality trait. And some other stuff comes with it. But like I said, I think, I don't know, my season 11 discussion, something like that, or the ending discussion, that some people, that a lot of smart characters, that's just what they are, but that there are some that can have a personality outside of that. And I learned, I think, through watching season 11 and then Guardians Volume 2 so close to each other, is that I really like intelligent characters where that is not the first thing you think of, though, when you think of that character. We have, you know, Rocket in this case, who is super intelligent, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But you think first of his like really rambunctious overall devil may care personality and deep backstory, at least I do, before you actually think of how smart he is. And then it was kind of the same with season 11 with Jonah, where you don't first think how smart he is, even though he's probably the smartest of the three hosts we've seen. I know Joel could also build robots, but Jonah is also a space pilot with a college degree. We know that, so I kind of tend to side on Jonah with that one. But you don't think of that first. At least I don't. I think about how emotional and funny and sweet he is, and the smarts come second. And with Rocket, that's even more interesting though, because I think in the film universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not the comic books, but just the movies, I think Rocket is the smartest character we've ever seen. Because really think about it. I think the best one to compare him to would be Tony Stark, because they do a lot of the tech and wires and all that, the mechanical building stuff. And it's like, yes, Tony Stark can do some amazing things with technology, but just think about the end of the first movie of Guardians, where ship crashes, they think Groot is dead, Rocket is in extreme emotional distress, but in 30 seconds, while Peter is distracting Ronan, he's able to take the wreckage of the ship within like 2 feet of him and build like a gun to get the Infinity Stone out of Ronan's hands. It's like, no one else could Tony Stark do that? No, like Rocket is that intelligent, which I love that. I think that's great that the smartest character we have is the weird experimented on raccoon who has such a bizarre personality and is just so fun to watch. Like, I like him so much better than Tony Stark. You have no idea. But I think it's putting all that together really makes him my favorite character. There's just something about the attitude, how funny he is in general, the dark, sad backstory, the inner demons, and the intelligence all together that just makes him, I think, one of the best characters in this entire universe. Easy. One more thing I want to touch on real quick is that we have yet another death that actually stuck. One of the very few Marvel deaths that stuck. With Yondu's death. Who would have thought? After watching that first movie that we would have cared that he died ever? Like, just, but it's so emotional and really means something in this movie, and it's weird because we don't get a lot of deaths that stick, and this is obviously one that will, and we don't get many characters that were as prominent in a film as him that then die. One more thing, actually, that was not the last thing I want to talk about. Last thing I want to talk about that I think shows how good these movies are, how good these actors are, how good these characters are, how good James Gunn is at these films, is that in 2 movies, I care more about these characters in 2 movies than I do about most of the other characters, guys, after even more films for them. I like the first Guardians more than the first Avengers. And I definitely like this better than the second Avengers. The second Avengers, guys, is awful. Ultron is not good. Just so you know, Age of Ultron is not a good movie. But the Guardians movies are brilliant. They're fun, but they have emotional punches. I feel more for these characters than almost any other characters in this universe. And there's just something about these guys that I can connect with really well. I think that they're just so real in the way that they are a bunch of jerks, but at the same time they're lovable jerks. And that's kind of real life sometimes in that way. And that I do just, there's something about these guys that I'm like, for whatever reason, I connect to that. I want to apologize. I just from sitting here and talking about it, I don't think this review is very good. I should have had notes or something, because normally I'm good at just talking about these things. I think they usually turn out pretty well. So if this did not come off well, I do apologize. Hopefully one day I can do a better. Maybe one day I'll do a specifically like character-driven episode about these guys, about the Guardians. Maybe I'll do that for more Marvel characters. I think I just came up with an idea for a series on the spot. Maybe we'll do that, because I think I'll be happier with that. I think the movie itself, like I said, hopefully if you've watched this far, you've seen it. Hopefully if you watched this far, it means you enjoy hearing me ramble pretty fruitlessly, so thank you. I'm sorry it took so long to get this out. Hopefully one day I'll talk about these guys and give them the video they deserve, but I definitely wanted to get this out to you guys, to have at least something and to talk about this, because I do want to talk about this with you guys. I'm working hard on the next season 1 video. I finally finished writing it and I'm in the editing process, so hopefully within the next 1 to 2 days it'll be up on Patreon, and then it'll be up here, so we'll get that up. I hope you enjoyed this. Oh! Also, I've known this for like a month, and I just forgot to tell you guys, for those of you still watching, which, like, all 4 of you, I will be in Nashville for the summer beach party extravaganza, palooza, whatever it's called, for RiffTrax Live. I should look that up first. Where everyone's gonna be there riffing. I will be in Nashville, so if you are gonna be in Nashville on June... is it 13th or 15th? I will put it on the screen, whatever that Thursday is. I am gonna be there for the show, so if you're gonna be in Nashville, it's like, let's meet, let's talk in person a little bit. That would be awesome. I'm gonna be there. I hope you are, and that you'll see me and say hi, so that would be awesome. But either way, if you watched this far, thank you so much for watching. Normally I'm not this down about myself. Even when I'm nervous about a video, I'm not this down about it. There is just some vibe is not working today, but one day I will talk about these guys again in depth, maybe even in individual videos. I don't know, we'll see. But we will talk about this and it'll be way better, I promise. So, but thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.